Talking Tottenham, a fantasyfocus.com production.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 163 of Talking Tottenham, brought to you by Manscaped. Oh, yeah, baby, we're back. Lawnmower 4.0 right here. Just look at how sleek that thing is. It's quite preposterous. The Euros, they're all about bragging rights and showing pride for your country's squad. With the help of today's sponsor, Manscaped, you will definitely be showing pride in your squad. And by squad, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about your balls. With Manscaped, you can trim up your personal pitch without the fear of whacking your bollocks. Unlock that confidence and join the movement with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off free worldwide shipping using code KOIS20. That is KOIS20 at manscaped.com. And check it out, Shakes. You know, sure, did I not have a very successful endeavor as a single gentleman at a wedding over the weekend? Absolutely, I didn't. But I had the confidence of one that would have. And when I was walking around, I was like, damn, I know things are all set down below. Okay, we were ready to go into battle there. This thing's waterproof. Lawnmower, waterproof, LED light. You can see everything. No cleanup. Very simple. They also have the weed whacker. So I noticed I had some nose hairs. I did. I picked up a weed whacker from the fine folks at Manscaped. Just shoved it right up the nostril. No more hairs. Looked impeccable for this wedding over the weekend, Shakes. If you've been held back from nose hairs, perfect solution. You got the weed whacker. 79%, which I would find pretty low. It seems like there's 21% that might like the nose hairs, but 79 is a startling majority here. Admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. Get 20% off. Free shipping using the code KOIS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off. Free shipping, manscaped.com. Use code KOIS20. It's time that you add a few inches to your hairy Kane using Manscaped. Danny Shakes, how are you?
Bucks, I'm doing all right. So wait, those other 21% or 29%, what was it, 71, 29? They're just being nice.
I would assume that part of it is, it was, are you attracted to nose hairs?
Hopefully
so
the answer is no.
Said yes.
That's crazy. They were just being nice to whoever was asking this question.
Possibly. Or they answered NA. Like maybe I do, maybe I don't. I just haven't met the right nose hairs.
I wouldn't say it's like an absolute no. It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there type of response.
But I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing all right. It's Euros. We're still in group stage, about to get into the knockouts, and Spurs still do not have a manager. So I need to eat crow, man. I said we would know the manager and thought we did. And I thought it was Mr. Paulo Fonseca, the old Roma coach. I thought we would know the name of the manager before Euro started. And it turns out we do not. Now the new question becomes, Bucks, will we know who the manager is before Euros finishes on July 11th? The fact that you're taking time to think about it, that's a problem for Spurs.
The problem is there's nothing that tells me we will. And I called it beforehand. I don't think that we'll know by the end of Euros. I think it'll come the week after, which gives the new manager a solid 3 weeks to get the squad ready and get it in line with and shape the expectations there. But Danny Shakes, I've been noticing something with you. It's time we need to talk about it live on air. I speak with Danny Shakes more than any other person in my life because of our love for Spurs, this podcast, and just general love for football of all kinds. Here in the States, the Euros, whatever it is, we talk about it 24 hours a day. You're one of my best friends, even though you're one of my best enemies. It's balance. It's yin and yang. But we got to talk about your bitter nature lately, Shakes. You have been insufferable in terms of your perception on the world of football, the world in general. Where in the world is this bitterness coming from? I suppose it's probably from Tottenham Hotspur failing to handle a situation very smoothly. But I want to hear it, from the horse's mouth here.
Bucks, I appreciate you outing me right now in front of everyone. And you're absolutely right. I have nowhere to hide here. I need to be better and probably nicer on the group chat. I would say I might be a little snappier to you and Everton Jordan on our group chat. I don't think I've gotten like personal or anything, hopefully. But yeah, it probably stems with this ongoing debacle that is a manager search. And then also probably some very misplaced bets in the Euro so far. Team England needs to score more than 1 goal per game. That's just my expert opinion if they're going to go through and actually do some damage. Not like in Spain right now, France, what happened there against Hungary. So let's just say it's kind of snowballed, Bucks. But yes, where it started rolling downhill, this proverbial snowball of Shakes' bitterness is the fact that I check Twitter too many times per day, expecting to see something else. And it's the definition of insanity, expecting a different result, even though you're doing the same thing over and over. And Spurs do not have a manager yet. It is flat out embarrassing. I don't know if we're going to use this Euro thing as like a cover up to say, well, we were just trying to figure shit out, but I see through it. I'm sure a lot of other supporters see through it. Rumor on the street now is we're just going back to the original list. So I don't even know why we had Paratici come in with his list. So it's just absolutely a dumpster fire, Bucks. I just cannot look at it any other way. I'm not sure if you can or if you can make me cheer up a little bit. But yeah, that's probably where my bitterness is coming from. It stems there. Everything else going well, family and everything. So,
I mean, you've always had a little bit of a jagged edge to you when it comes to me. And I think that I handle your jagged edgedness quite well most times. But when I can't say a single thing to you without some sort of snapback response that just comes full circle to you remind me of Daniel Levy, or you're worse than Levy, or you know what, you're like Jose, but 4 times as worse as Jose in terms of personnel management for this podcast. It has gotten in personnel management for this podcast. It's tough. You know, there's just one of me and one of you. And it's not great, man. There are times that it gets stressful trying to handle a ship this large, right? You know, who's cooking the eggs in the morning? I don't know. You know, I thought Danny Shakes would because he could poach eggs. At least he claims to be able to poach eggs. And then if I asked him if he could poach eggs, Danny Shakes snaps like, why don't you poach your own fucking eggs? And then we're right back on the same thing here. You know, at the end of the day, I think Ian just nailed it. Ian Ferguson. I think Shakes needs to see Linda. I'm doing fantastic during all this, and I'll tell you why. So is it frustrating? Absolutely. Was it more frustrating for me to see us in the talks with the likes of Antonio Conte if we had Gattuso, Fonseca? Like, these are names that I can convince myself anything and like try to turn something that I didn't expect into a positive after doing the research, etc. But I've had my heart set on one man, and that's Graham Potter. And at the very least, this gets him back in the mix. It pisses me off that the Paratici thing happens. And then based on, you have the interview with Paratici, and then you have kind of the rumblings that he's looking for a more traditional defensive-minded manager of the club. That's how you win in Europe. That's how, you know, you kind of take that next step and really build out the defensive line. And you got Harry Kane, hopefully, and Hunman's son, and you're going to be scoring goals. So if we shore that up, we'll be fine. But then Daniel Levy comes out the same day with that interview. And the more that I've thought about that, I start to think Daniel Levy says we need to find the true nature and return to the true nature mentality of the club, the historic mentality of the club. To dare is to do. Let's go balls out. Well, now it seems like you brought in this guy to give him full reign on who he's going to manage or who he's going to bring in to manage. But then you're going to just pull back on those reins, and he's wearing a chomp bit, and he is just choking right now at the hands of Daniel Levy. And all of it just makes me happy because I think we're at the beginning of the end in terms of the involvement with Enoch. I really have to believe that because this is spiraling. And instead of getting mad about it, I'm just happy that Graham Potter is back in the mix. I've been just pounding that. This has been my banner that I've been waving for the last 6 weeks is Graham Potter's the guy. I still believe it. It just seems like it's taking quite a long time to get this done. And hopefully we can get him done. I would much prefer Graham Potter to Nuno. But for the sake of this podcast and like our friendship and also our enemyship, I just need Spurs to name a manager soon. Because if this goes on, Shakes, through July 18th, a week after Euros, I don't even want to know what you're going to be like. And the folks out there are going to see a side of you that they never expected to see. You're going to be ranting raving. You're probably going to uptick your whiskey consumption during this podcast. You're currently a glass of podcast guy, maybe a beer. I think that's going to get ratcheted way up if we get to July 11th. We haven't named a manager. We're still scrambling. God forbid that there's 3 or 4 more names that are thrown out there that reject us or something falls apart at the last minute. Good Lord, good luck to us. Good luck to our listeners, and good luck to the future of this podcast.
Well said, Bucks. We could have played that probably the last 3 or 4 podcasts, though. Just the ongoing search that is Tottenham Hotspur's pursuit for a manager. I don't even know what you want to call it. Like bumbling around, shuffling, trying to figure out what list that Fabio originally had versus what Levy's original list was. And then now we're going to go back to Potter and also ETH. Ten Hag apparently is on that list. I will say the Potter experience, it does feel like Levy and Potter are in this rom-com that you're watching, Bucks. I was always in the table. I was always there. I was literally in the table of the EPL. And maybe just the whole time, that's just who Levy should have ended up matching up with. I do think this, though, like, is this at all Paratici's decision? I think no, right? I mean, I don't even know. I guess he's here to help scout some players, and he's got some good ties to Italy. Maybe he came in with his list originally, and Levy started reading it, and he's like, shit, it's all Italians. Like, every single thing on here is Italy, except for the one manager who's Portuguese, and it turns out he's replacing Mourinho. So, like, maybe just like Levy started going through stuff, realized he already signed the guy, Paratici I'm talking about, and then at that point was like, well, hold on, I'm going to still – it's like old habits die hard. He hires this person to lead up the manager search, and now it doesn't sound like he's leading up the manager search.
Question, give me an honest temperature check. Do you feel that Levy might just fire Paratici within the next 2 weeks?
So I actually had this question for you. I said, okay, what would happen first? Paratici gets fired or we have a new manager?
Paratici gets fired.
That's definitely the better odds, right?
It has to be. If you could get odds on that, I would say that that's probably the leader in the clubhouse.
He's just like, I can't work with this guy. Like, this is ridiculous.
I'll do this all myself. So Potter, I like this rom-com idea. Potter is the barista at your local, your local morning stop on the way into White Hart Lane, and they never mess up your order. Always have something flirtatious to say to you.
Does he have a history though? Real quick, sorry. Like, like he's a widower and like one daughter. Like I'm going more holiday film, I think.
So like wait, holiday rom-com. See, this is the weirdness that keeps coming at you. So all of a sudden, Daniel Levy is a widower. Like he lost.
No. I was thinking more Potter in this one.
Oh, but Potter didn't look. I don't know if Potter's even married. He's a young man.
True.
46.
I'm equating this to like a rom-com Christmas movie, but there's always like the loss of a loved one.
You had to go to the widower. Why can't Graham Potter just be this smoking hot? Maybe not smoking hot. Definitely not smoking hot.
It would be Levy because he lost his manager. He's looking for new love.
Fair. Okay. But he didn't lose it. He just divorced the shit out of her.
Maybe he had to change his ways. So he's got his new best friend, Paratici, who moved back into his apartment, like trying to talk some sense into him. Like, hey, man, it is kind of you. You got to change, and then that's where the barista gets it out of him.
I like this. And yeah, so all of a sudden, Levy has all these failed attempts at these supermodels.
Yeah.
And then he went from like, the girl who's posing for Coach the girl who's posing for what's another? I don't know fancy brands. What's a fancy brand with
Louis Vuitton?
Louis Vuitton. And then all of a sudden he's like, shit, we can't hang with these girls. But you know what, Daniel? Instagram. Let's go for the Instagram thoughts. And he's just sprinkling DMs all over the place. Oh, Fonseca? Yep. Bikini pics. We're in. Boom. Hit it. And then they move on. That didn't work out. Kind of crazy. Boom. Gattuso. A little more risque with the photography on the Instagram, but shoot, give him a DM. We'll see what happens here.
And then that one.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he digs up kind of some dirt.
But before that, he starts texting his ex, Maurizio.
He definitely texted the ex in there. You up? Hey, can we hang? Can I take you to the movies? Again, it's not Cinebistro. Went down to the local Airmark, tried to figure it out from there. No popcorn, though. I brought my own. And yeah, at that point, goes through back to the barista. And the barista is always so consistent. In fact, if there's ever another barista in that coffee establishment, the barista makes a terrible coffee. It's almost like this particular barista, known as Graham Potter, has a magic touch with the froth. There's just something else that they're frothing, and the froth is so dainty. They put in my initials, DL, every time. Right there, I can see it. That's love. That's love. And that's what's going to take Spurs to the next level. But let's imagine that it isn't this, and we will get to listener questions. We have like 9, 10, or 11 of them. Too many to count. So we figured we'd make this a fun episode. I think we're off to a rousing start. We're going to get into this question from Big White Hart Lane, which is just fantastic.
We did not talk pre-show about the rom-com. I did hit you with that. I'm sorry.
We don't talk about anything that we talk about on the show pre-show. What are you talking? We really don't. That's what makes it fun. That's why I like it. All right, so Big White Hart Lane coming in. We figured we lead with this because I think it's just this is going to end up being an absolute clusterfuck. As no one wants to work with Levy and manage Spurs, can you tell us how each of you would do the job? The scenario is that Levy has invited you in for an interview and you really want the gig. Well, hell yeah, I'd take the gig. So Bucky and Danny Shakes, give us your pitch and plan, tactics, personnel, and goals. Personnel, I'm not even going to act like I can weigh in on that, but I will get into the pitch, the plan, the tactics, and the goals. Personnel, I leave that up to my director of football. So the way that we really shook this down just 4 minutes before we hit the go live button is Danny Shakes, financial background, right? Myself, fantastic public speaker, motivator of men and women, an individual that gets the most out of the day, kind of a seize the day type guy, a real tactician. So Danny Shakes handles the player movements. Danny Shakes handles the financial input from the purse strings of Daniel Levy. He's the one that wants to make sure that Daniel Levy understands this is a solid investment. You can't lose. So I believe it was either Jerry or Ian, who are both tuned in here, and I'll look it up, proposed that we go in like stepbrothers, like Dale and what's the other? Dale and Brennan. And we duel it. We go in
wearing tuxes.
Twice, 2-on-1. We go 2-on-1. We double team Levy. And we go in there and we make the pitch of the century. So Danny Shakes, I'll let you handle how you would pitch the Bucks and Shakes combo to Daniel Levy. You start on your edge, and then we'll get to mine.
Well, as director of football operations, and really, how often don't I text you, Bucks, about the numbers? All I care about are the numbers. In addition to the analytical mind that hopefully I would bring, really just show a shit ton of spreadsheets and like crazy proprietary quote unquote formulas that really impress Daniel Levy, I'd go that route. I'd be making up like different XG terms that don't even exist, really trying to throw things over his head. I would also really chameleon it as far as friendships go. I'm talking 6 months of recon, making sure I knew where he golfed, what his favorite breakfast food was, so that every single thing that he said or do, I was ready to finish the sentence. I was ready to offer up the right drink to him, something that's just like way off out of left field. Like, oh, I do love 87, whatever, Rhones from this region of France. So I would go all in on my recon with Daniel Levy, make sure on the chameleon side, I became best friends with him. And then from there, try to act like I talked about on the analytics side. I would triple my scouting side because I feel like Spurs need to really figure things out, especially in places like Germany, Netherlands, anywhere outside the EPL. And I would attack it that way. Then I'd bring in you as the manager, the motivator of men, the believer, the guys that get people that didn't even know how to believe. And then you'd go from there and just win them over.
Yeah, so I like to take more of an abstract approach here. Clearly, the drilling them into oblivion week over week is not getting it done. You had complaints on both edges of the sword. You had Pochettino, too many training sessions. We go way too hard during the training sessions. And you had Mourinho that was like, yeah, we have like tons of training sessions, but we really don't work on any of the fundamentals during these training sessions.
Anything on offense.
So the first thing that I am all about is balance. And I also want to note this, Shakes. It did sound kind of like you wanted to stalk Daniel Levy for a while. 6 months of stalking?
I mean, I want to do this job well, Bucks.
That's a good point. For a minute, you reminded me of the other guys where they're going into like the big bad in the film. They're in his office. The guy just keeps coming at him with like Broadway tickets, Lakers tickets, all this different shit. And then the cucumber water, that'd be you. You just like midway through, you'd hear Daniel Levy like buzz down to get, beverages in there. And then all of a sudden, just like from behind your back, you just pull out like the perfect beverage, whether or not that's cucumber water, like it was in the other guys. That would just be a hysterical moment. But my plan is quite simple. So tactically, y'all know my problem with Spurs. It's well documented. There's a lot of pitter patter around the box. There's only like 3 or 4 people that take shots on net. I want all 10 field players, maybe even the goalkeeper, blasting shots on net. So the tactics are very simple. We can't defend to save our lives. And I know the defensive statistics kind of go against that, but when it really counts, you know what, Daniel, and I'm talking to Levy here, Levy, what I have seen is a team that just either needs a 6-goal lead or will crumble in crunch time. So my entire goal is to get all 11 players blasting on net. So it's a very simple tactical discussion here. Levy, we're going to keep blasting. Okay, you want to dare, you want to do, that's what we do here at Buck Shakes Inc. We make sure that we're blasting on net. Now, how do we get to that point where we feel comfortable blasting? Well, that's where we get to my weekly breakdown. Okay, so the weekly breakdown is quite simple. Mondays, we have movie Mondays. So as a young man, I felt most motivated when in middle or high school classes, when a teacher would just throw movies on. I really didn't want to do the pre-calc. I really didn't want to do the chem work. What I wanted to do was watch film. And so I feel like these players, they just came off a match either Saturday or Sunday. We're doing movie Mondays, motivational films that have changed my outlook and my trajectory in life. Films like Finding Nemo and Hardball starring Keanu Reeves. That's just a sample. But we're going to have plenty of motivational film. You could throw Good Will Hunting in there. It's not your fault, players. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And then I give each of them a big hug and they cry on my shoulder. Then we have Tangy Tuesdays. This team, quite simply, lacks fucking tangies. It's time that we're slamming tangies. We do a rotation, 1 tangy per hour for 6 straight hours. We make sure these guys have the ample amount of vitamin C in their bodies at all times. Vitamin C means more output on the training pitch. Okay. That's also our only full day of training. We train all 6 hours of the week on Tuesdays with tangies. Vitamin C, hydration, very key components, but that's our only full day of training. the tangerines are mandatory. If you say you can't eat tangerines, then you're not going to play for my team. We're eating tangies, and those of you who don't eat tangies can simply find the door. It's that simple. Okay. And yes, Jerry, we also attack box. We don't just keep last and we attack box. Wednesdays. This is probably one of the ones that's going to get us over the hump. Wednesdays are Wildlife Wednesdays. We simply take a hike, Danny. We get out in nature. We observe the local wildlife with a specific focus on birds and spiders. Okay, so why birds and why spiders? Well, number one, birds can fly.
This is true.
Spiders have 8 legs. Can you imagine if a human had 8 legs and they were kicking a soccer ball around? How would you stop that? You couldn't. So observe them. Understand that you, as a human with 2 legs, need to grow 6 other legs. So observe, adapt, and move forward. Focus on birds and spiders. Birds fly, spiders 8 legs. Very simple equation here. You observe these animals in the wild. You take hikes, you get out in nature, and you have a very, very solid foundational approach to how you're going to attack box and keep lasting on Saturday or Sunday. Any questions so far?
No, I mean, we've been working together for years, which is why I'm not asking anything when it comes to this pitch.
We have to adapt. We have to make, adaptation to the approach. Obviously, you're used to a lot of these fundamental principles, but, we have to build on experience and get better.
And we would talk beforehand. I'd say, okay, I have 7 made up statistics that prove Eric Dyer is the worst center back in the Prem. Like I would say his XG defensive min regress plus minus is 32nd right now. It's ridiculous.
And you would compare that to whatever spider we were observing.
Yes. And then you bring in the spider from there. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Then we have Thursdays. Thursdays are thinking cap Thursdays.
Match strategy.
Thinking. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this whole thing. Thinking cap Thursdays, instrumental for our foundations of success. We pull out the projector. We're at One Hotspur Way. All 30 men gathered together, and we watch 5 hours of Gary V videos on YouTube. Thinking cap Thursdays. You're going to have to rearrange your mentals right up here in order to rearrange your physicals and your ability to react and cope with change and make money by saying curse words in a business trajectory. That's how we get it done. Gary V videos for 5 straight hours. If you can't get better performance out of somebody by watching a Gary V video, you're out the door. Again, this goes back to the tangerine refusals. So if you're refusing tangerines, you're out. If you're not getting better by watching 5 hours straight every Thursday of Gary V videos, you're also out the door. Thoughts on the Gary V thinking cap Thursdays?
We'll start with how to crush it. That's one of the videos.
How to hustle harder.
Most
grind to
word.
Shine.
Yeah. No, I'm in so far. I mean, this is what, like I said, and all the numbers to back it.
Okay. All right. This gets to the last day of training. This is the weekly plan, by the way. Once we're full in motion, there's no changing of the plan. Okay. You got free ball Fridays.
Yeah.
You can't wear undergarments. There are no drawers. You can't wear them. This allows the boys to breathe and prep for the weekend match. You also need to use Manscaped. Figured I'd get a plug in there. I feel like this is crucial. Clearly, we've been playing with a lot of tension. And I think that tension comes because the balls aren't free. And this has nothing to do. This would have been it with or without the Manscaped sponsorship. But I will say, free ball Fridays. Let them breathe, Shakes. Right now, we feel constricted as a club. Constricted. Daniel Levy also has to abide by free ball Fridays. So, that's one of my caveats with him, stipulations. You have to go free ball.
He probably already does.
Well,
he
you
wears
will
some
know by
rich
that
person
point.
underwear
You will know by
that makes it feel that way. Yes, you're right. I would know exactly the brand.
You would
you
clearly
allow?
know.
Would you allow for an hour of unlimited nut tapping so everyone's head's on a swivel, raise alertness?
No, I'm a staunch adversary of a nut tap.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay.
For the algorithms.
We will also be having Pizza Pie Friday in conjunction with Free Ball Friday. Danny Shakes knows this, but I'm a strong believer in Pizza Pie Fridays. That's the day I order my pizzas. And it makes everybody's Friday better. And I also grew up playing. So Levy, I grew up playing American football. Okay. When you play high school football in America, you go to the local pizza joint that sponsors the team and you just go balls out. Like balls out. We're Free Ball Friday. We're already balls out, but then we go balls out with the catering. And it's just pizza pie. You got ziti. Basically, Pizza Pie Fridays is carb loading, which it's very apparent we're not doing in preparations for the match. So Thursday nights, we would do the carb load. Friday night lights, we'd get out there, bang skulls a little bit, win a few of the games, lose most of the games, and then wake up on Monday just dreaming about Pizza Pie Thursday. Well, we're now dreaming about Pizza Pie Friday in preparation for Saturday or Sunday's match. Then we go out there. We are fully prepared. Okay. You got Movie Mondays, Finding Nemo, Hardball with Keanu Reeves, Good Will Hunting, It's Not Your Fault. Then we have the beautiful Tangy Tuesday, followed there by Wildlife Wednesday, which it might seem on the surface like you're overlooking, at least to me, the Wildlife Wednesday. I think that's the most important day. Thinking Cap Thursdays, Gary V, either keep hustling harder or you can leave. And then Free Ball Fridays, which is in conjunction with Pizza Pie Friday. That's how we set up. What is the goal, Levy? What is the goal? Well, the goal is simple. Start winning some goddamn matches. How about that? How about let's not aim for top 4. Let's aim for top 1. Let's go out there and win the whole damn thing.
You just stare at him.
And now the job is ours. You can't, it's impeccable. This is an impeccable
well put together,
plan.
man. Yeah.
Danny Shake stalking, Wildlife Wednesdays. Yeah.
I feel like there's some dentists from Always Sunny in my recon.
There's quite a bit of dentist in there.
A little bit of the dentist system in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bucks, I don't know how that loses, to tell you the truth.
Especially birds and spiders.
Well, it would all start similar to how Paratici got hired first. I guess I get hired first, and then I'm like, Bucks, he's our guy. It just stops and ends there, and then that's your pitch.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a decent pitch, to be quite honest with you.
It would be really fun because, like Kane and Son would just embrace whatever manager's tactics. So they'd just be, guys, it's Tangy Tuesday. Let's go. Like, we're studying spiders. It's Wednesday.
Yeah, well, see, that's the beauty of Wildlife Wednesday and Thinking Cap Thursday. They're both 5-hour days. So Kane can go out and golf both afternoons if he wanted to.
Golf while finding spiders.
In fact, I will actually mandate, we'll get some golf in there. Mandated golf outing once a week, full team.
Ooh, scramble, but we have to rotate it.
And then also Danny Shakes and I get to play every weekday in the afternoons for free. You pay for that shit, Levy.
At the club that you belong still at.
Yeah, you're paying for the golf, and you're also paying us while we golf. It's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're salaried. It's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good pitch. Big White Hart Lane, my guy, Graham. What an unbelievable question. And I just can't see how this fails. All right, on to our next question here. Like I said, we got so many of them. I like this one here from Alex Asher. So this kind of circles back to the Euros. If you had to pick a Euros manager for Spurs, who would you want? Seems a lot of people are against Roberto Martinez, but I've always liked him. Much rather him over Southgate for me. I agree there. I prefer Roberto Martinez to Gareth Southgate's coma of a game-watching experience. But what about you? For me, it's Mancini in Italy. I like the way his teams attack the games.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say Roberto Mancini. Italy, I thought, has looked the most impressive. Bucks. Belgium's looked pretty good too. I mean, their stars have shown. Now that KDB is just suddenly back, no face mask, nothing, just like running into shit. Hazard looks a lot skinnier. Lukaku does not, but he's still finishing. So I see the Belgian angle, but I just think Italy plays far more free. Their midfield's a powerhouse that presses up a little bit. You're seeing such a difference between like the way Italy plays and France and England play. I go Mancini all day long. I don't think it's close.
I don't think it's close either. And honestly, Mancini seems like a guy that could get a little bit of redemptive strike in EPL after this stint.
Yeah,
the
Man City stint. He was at Inter after that, I think. I don't know what the success was there, but sometimes you just got to find a home someplace that all matches.
I agree. It's Mancini for us. I wouldn't mind Martinez, but Martinez is well
Levy
below
likes
par
Martinez.
Yeah.
Does Levy kind of look like Martinez?
A little bit. Like
Martinez there.
Levy looks a hell of a lot more evil than Martinez.
For sure.
Like, all right, so if it were a movie, they both kind of look like villains, but like Martinez is the guy that works for Levy in terms of Levy's like the top dog villain who's kind of just like calling the shots, and then Martinez is just like the killer.
Like less redeemable.
And let it be known, he's not a killer. Like, I don't think he's killed anybody, but maybe. So like
you mean in the courtroom, because these are hotshot lawyers.
Yes.
In this Christmas rom-com.
Martinez comes blasting in there, just doling out. Hey,
they're the best trial team in the biz, and they put together this guy who was innocent. Yeah, and they're just like, man, we're just crushing the game. Or they just
all right. We got Stormy Chappett here. Are we selling Kane to City? Your take? What's your temperature gauge right now, Shakes?
More than 50%, but it's a slight number over 50% to Kane does leave Bucks.
To Man City.
Yes. I would say it's Man City, quite a distance in between anyone else, and then maybe Man U next. That would be the only two.
Okay.
I guess like out of nowhere PSG could show up. I just don't see that happening. With that said, I thought we'd have a manager 4 weeks ago, so don't take anything I say with at all as gospel. I think if they're gonna start, that you're never gonna accept the first offer, right? So it's like you're reading everything that, of course, Spurs would say back, which is, we're not gonna accept this offer for $100 million. Thank you, but no, thank you. We're not even gonna entertain it. With that said, if that's the starting offer, and that's true, what Fabs and usually what he reports is pretty credible. If that's where this has started, and then also players are being thrown in there, granted, you got to figure out what their wages are, because Man City's got a way bigger payroll and wage structure. But if we start talking like £100 million plus, I don't know, Laporte or Gabriel Jesus, whoever, someone like that, I think Spurs will start to think about this. It's just what I'm trying to wrestle with, and this might be a question back to you after you answer whether you think Kane's gone or not. Is Levy really pragmatic, or is he just considered a tough negotiator and that's about it? Because he really kind of only seems to make irrational, if not ego-driven decisions, like firing Poch, then hiring Jose, and apparently leading this ridiculous manager search. Like, none of this feels like he's some disciplinarian, really following this regimented idea structure of how to carry out being the boss. It feels a lot more emotional to me. So if that's the case, then Kane might just stay forever. Who knows? And he'll just drive his value into the ground and then try to transfer him out at 36 years old.
So I'll answer that. I'll answer the Levy question first, and then I'll get to my thoughts on Kane. With the Levy question, is he pragmatic? I don't think he is whatsoever. The problem, I think, with Levy is, despite being in the mix at Spurs for nearly 20 years now, is that he still doesn't understand and know how to adapt to the changing game and the changing financial demands to become a top player in the game. And I think as much of a blessing as watching those peak performance Pochettino teams were, and it really was such a fantastic experience as a viewer, as a fan of this club, watching it from 2010, 2011 onward, and watching the club just kind of advance so quickly and become this, not a power, but a team that you didn't want to fuck with week over week. Like you would have had us circled 2016, 2017, 2018, no doubt. And that's almost kind of like a curse because he did it with limited financial investment on the pitch. Now, off the pitch, there's been a tremendous amount of investment. And the problem with being a sports fan in general is that it's very hard to see the long term when you're being successful in the short term. And that's not just as a fan. I think that's also for a guy like Daniel Levy. So what's happened so far now is Levy still believes we can hit that, genie in a bottle type situation where it's the right mix, it's the right set of younger players with some older players that bring in that balance, and it just works with the right tactical manager. The problem now becomes that he can't identify or at least adjust to the fact that the landscape has changed. The landscape has changed immensely over the last 5 seasons. So now we were on the ascent and we rode that gravy train for 2 years, didn't get anything out of it except for a lot of great matches and a lot of fun as an observer of the club, fan of the club. But now we're left in this situation where it has been frustrating. We haven't dropped to our lowest low is my fear. And if he keeps messing around the way that he's messing around with every decision he's made in the last 18 months, I fear for the future of the club. So with that being said, it really sucks that there's a possibility that Harry Kane will not be playing for Spurs. Will I be heartbroken? I will. But I think we're at that kind of crossroads now where we haven't named a manager. Harry Kane's moved on to knockouts. They're going to have a hell of a tough match here in the round of 16, but who knows what can happen in 90 minutes of football. Hopefully they advance, but Kane has to be going to sleep at night, definitely thinking about England. He's a guy who focuses on his craft, but there's got to be this little part of him that might be keeping him up at night. Like, what the hell are we doing? Did they not give a shit? Like,
no manager
I need to be able to talk with this person. We need to get plans in motion. We know what our problems are, yet we failed to name the one piece that can get us moving towards fixing our problems so that we can win with Spurs. And part of me just thinks it's time to sell him. So I don't hope that he's gone. I think that he's gone, and I think he goes to Man City. And if the first bid is 100 million and they floated some players out there and we said no, probably because of wages, if I were to guess, right, then my guess is that Man City is going to have to bump that way up. And if there's one team that's going to be able to do it, that it's going to be Man City. So if we can get to that 140, I would even say 130 mark for Harry Kane, I still think we're selling low. But I think it's a necessary evil, especially if we're going to reset with a Graham Potter type, to go ahead and just cut him loose. Let him go aspire to greatness. Let him come to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium the first game of the year and bash our brains in, which will, those assholes.
Yeah, that'll happen quick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know I've called Levy pragmatic on here multiple times, but it's like I had to take a step back and think, like, no, he's kind of more emotional, if anything, just with his knee-jerk reaction and hired Jose so quickly after firing Poch. And again, this manager search is just a debacle. But that's where I worry, Bucks, because you hit the nail on the head as you're talking. It's like, do you think the odds are Spurs still have bottoming out to do, or just next year they're in a better spot? Like, start right there. If we're going to play like the pragmatic decision tree game, do we think Spurs are better next year, Or do you think they are still have some room to go, so they either stay the same or actually, unfortunately, do even worse next year?
If they don't address the 5 key areas that I mentioned to you, or at least the top 2, which is right back, center back, we need a creative midfielder, we need a winger, and then we probably need another striker. If we don't address at least 2 of those with some very solid players, then we're going downwards. Regardless of who comes in, I think there's some players that can step up to new levels next season that are currently on the roster. But I think those players are also the players that have the most value in the market.
Probably right.
So that I mean that's only natural, right? But that's how it feels. So if we fail to make proper investments, the sheer lack of any whispers surrounding player links to Spurs right now, when they're flying hot and heavy for other clubs that have managers, that's a major concern for me.
Right.
I think the bottom has yet to fall out. If we don't address the situation keenly and in a pragmatic sense, which in my opinion, unfortunately, involves Harry Kane leaving.
Don't get me wrong.
The price has to be right. The price has to be right, Bob Barker.
Yeah, no, it does. But that's where you look at it and you're like, oh, that was their starting offer, 100 million. If that's, again, true. And I'm going by Fab's reporting. It's a little different than reading shit from wherever else I read it on Twitter, which is probably half my fault then to put myself in the mind space that I am Bucks with how bitter I am following this manager shit. But it's like, it turns into that decision tree. It's like, if you don't think Spurs really are going to contend for anything meaningful next year, so let's say they're top 4, maybe on the cusp, and then next year it's Kane is 2 years to go in his contract, which we know he's not going to sign a new one right then unless some drastic change happens. So that's the year you have to sell your star player, is in the second from last year of the contract. So that's where there's still some remaining bargaining power. But what does that go down? So is it worth selling Kane for 120 million plus a couple players, or keeping him for a year where maybe just things don't work out still because Spurs got to work everything else out across the lineup, and then you're selling him for 80 million because everyone knows at that point you're 1 year away from him leaving on a free. So I don't know if Kane would do that to the club's the other part of it, but like, I don't want to wait and see and find out, Bucks. But that's where it turns into pragmatic thinking. You just got to make kind of peace with the fact that if you don't think you're rebuilding on the fly, which is I kind of thought what we tried to do last year, and that did not work out. Ran it back with some players, brought in some others to plug gaps. Sure, some were success like Højbjerg. I'm still holding out hope for Reggie, but just shit like Doherty didn't work out. You know, it's not like Ndombele set the world on fire. Same with my boy Lascelles. He was hurt the whole time. And then the center backs just never got better. So, like you said, sure, like every team, if you fill 5 needs at once, they're better. But if you're just going to be realistic about the situation and think Spurs are probably a team that's going to be between 5th and 10th in the table, I'm watching Leicester already signed players. Villa's had a good offseason. I mean, teams are getting better in addition to Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool, and Man City all being better. So it just you might have to just look around if you're leaving and say, look, this might be the time to max it all out. And that's unfortunately the pragmatic view. So it's the view that sucks. But if he's emotional, maybe he keeps Kane, and next you know, we're $40-50 million less next year.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about that perspective. I'm just basing this on the facts that I do know and the tendencies of the club in terms of spending. So, in my opinion, we need to invest 100 million into 3 key positions. Pick up a $20 million whatever. Then it needs to be $35 to $45 million players that we're bringing in to fill in center back and right back. And I think that would be a huge game changer for us. I would also like to see that creative midfielder. That would probably be the 20-25 million. You go for a younger guy, probably less proven, but able to make the pass, able to see the field. And it doesn't need to be Christian Eriksen. It just needs to be somebody that plays the game a little bit differently and sees the game a bit differently. And just like we scored with Christian as a younger player, something like that. But I want proven right back maybe not so proven, but definitely a proven center back. If we get Anderson, I think that would be massive for us, and I hope we can get that done. But that price tag's like 35 mil. So there's 35 there. If it's Tariq Lamptey comes in at 30, 35 mil, right? So you're already up to 70. There's nothing that makes me believe, even if we outlay 60 to 75 million with 3 to 4 players that we sell, there's nothing that could convince me that we're just going to reinvest that back into 2 players. There's nothing that convinces me of that, which makes me think that even if we offload 3, 4, maybe 5 players and we net about 75, 80 mil, in order for us to spend that 100, 110 million that I truly believe we need to spend if we want to get back into the top 4, if we want to compete for cups, for trophies, whatever you want to call it, it has to be spent. And I think the only way that we spend it, pragmatic thinking here, is if we have a windfall of 150 million for Harry Kane. Because then you're just playing with house money. You unloaded another 70, 75, 80 million. And that's hopeful, in my opinion. People talking about Serge going for 20. I'm sorry, they're not going to pay 20 million for Serge Aurier. They just
no.
Won't. They won't.
You know, another like fascinating subplot to me with this is the supposed handshake, gentleman's agreement that's been reported that Harry Kane thought he kind of had this conversation already with Levy. I don't know if it was Joe Lewis, Enoch, whatever, but it was kind of his understanding that if he did well and the club still did not perform well, then they would entertain these transfer offers out. And I'm not saying like Harry Kane's some sort of diva, because really, as far as star players go, we're lucky on that front as Spurs supporters that he is very workmanlike and not, the other way. But still, you don't think other players are watching how that all unfolds? I don't like that part either, Bucks. And I think that maybe that's what part of Paratici is here to do, is create this buffer so that players that are up and coming want to actually do business with Spurs. Because I really think that could be something that's talked about in those circles eventually. It's like, well, Kane was promised he'd get let go. He's got 3 years left on this contract. These offers are there. It's one thing to be like, yeah, I'll let you go if the offer's there. Well, if someone's offering you 100 million plus players, like, we're in the ballpark. I get it. Like he's valued higher in my mind, but we're not like getting offers at 65 million to start. So I worry about that front too, Bucks. And maybe that's where Paratici will help kind of cushion and create like another layer, if you will, to do business with Spurs, because I don't think we're looking good in this world either, dealing with players, let alone our manager search.
Well, that is a completely different thought process that I don't even want to get that dark, because I could get dark very quickly when it comes to.
Now you see why I'm so bitter.
No, the perception is king in the modern era. So yeah, that's rough. Yeah. Especially when
that shit.
Yeah, no, they see the same tweet shakes. They see the same tweets.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's why they all like go to Dortmund. Oh, Dortmund treats you well if you're a star young player, and they'll help cultivate. It's like stigmas happen, Bucks.
Yeah,
like, and
we need to break the stigma. That's why you got to bring in Shake Bucks Incorporated.
You do.
It's a partnership that's ready to dominate the EPL. We got 2 opposite ends of spectrum on Kane questions here. So we started pretty hot there. Went on for a good 15 minutes on
it's a topic of conversation. He should play a little better in Euros, though.
This is I thought he played well today. We don't need to get into it. Travis asks, if we sell Kane, do you wish him success, or do you hope he never wins a single goddamn thing?
I absolutely wish him success. He did a lot for this club. There are so many memories that you have with it. With that said, if there was a direct, Man City has Kane and they need to lose for Spurs to get top 4 or something, yes, I will root against them then. But overall, Bucks, if Spurs can't lift the trophy at the end of it, whatever that trophy might be, then I'm fine with Kane doing it. He's earned it.
Never win a single goddamn thing.
Wow. Vengeful. I'm the bitter one. You're the vengeful one.
I am vengeful.
Revenge.
You leave. It's you're basically rejecting a tangerine.
You left the family.
I hand you a tangerine. You slapped it down in the dirt.
You don't go against the family. Says Bucks.
This is a good one here from Silky Low VAR. How much of a decrease in Kane's output do you expect if he is quote unquote forced to stay at Spurs?
Again, this goes back to me saying we lucked out with the type of professional he is. And I think he loves the supporters, the club itself. He just has his own aspirations. So I really don't think that output goes down at all. I really don't. And that's probably Daniel Levy's number one, like, hitch this mindset to why I will do everything I can to keep him. He'll be the consummate pro and stay and also deliver for the team. I just don't know if him delivering is like what we just saw last year, Bucks. It's like he leads the league in goals and assists. Spurs still finish like only the conference, only to qualify for the European Conference League, and that's it. So now you're looking at transferring out Kane for something cheaper.
My concern is like what we saw in the Bang Energy Cup final, where they zoomed in on his face about the 80th minute, and he just said, "What is the fucking point?" Like that's my concern. I know he's a professional, but this guy has put the team on his back. Like, truly has done worlds for the club, and he's amazing. But when you see that frustration so up close and personal, like, I feel like that's my main concern is unless we actually have the investment without selling him to get the team into better shape and to win matches, to not concede late goals at the half, at the end of matches, then that frustration is just going to continue to build. I don't think he's going to be a guy that will sit matches out just for the hell of it. I don't see that happening because of the person he is at his core, caring about the supporters, caring about his job, his profession, being a professional. But how long does it drag out? So I wouldn't foresee like anything that happens early in the season, but if things don't go well, if the investment's not there, if we don't start improving as a squad, then yeah, I can see the frustrations really start to mount.
That's a good point. It's a long season.
Yep. I like this one here from Ian Ferguson. I know we still have Hugo, but when do we give Højbjerg the captain's band? Dude is a monster, and the way the Danish team had rallied behind him is just amazing. Thoughts on a potential Højbjerg as captain?
So Ian's already assuming Kane's not on the team with that question, I guess, is the way I'm kind of looking at it, because it would go to Kane first, and then it would go to Højbjerg. I think for a while Toby was in the running, but then he ran into problems with Mourinho. So who knows what new manager will think about all this if they just go strictly off tenure bucks as far as who's been here longer. I would just imagine it's Højbjerg next after Kane. So if Kane's on the team, I mean, that is who it would be. I don't think you ever strip the ban from a starting player. So Hugo's got it till he leaves. And that's just the way it is. But right now it probably would be Højbjerg next in line after Kane.
After seeing Højbjerg's passing, when he was a bit more forward and progressive for Denmark, I kind of think that hopefully we get an attacking-minded attacking-minded manager that we could go ahead and get him more involved, because those two bullet passes for both their goals were fantastic.
Can we talk about that game for a little bit? 4-1. Your boy had Denmark, and as soon as I saw the crowd and how like electric it was, I wish I max bet that thing. Like, they were not losing that match against Russia. And that kid to score the first opening goal and the place going ballistic, that's what Euro is all about. And then if you're watching that match simultaneously with the Belgium-Finland game, so it's kind of like, Denmark, they still needed another goal, then they needed Belgium to score, and then it looked like all that happened, and VAR ruled in on like it had to have been like a half a millimeter off or something, Bucks. I can't believe they called Lukaku offside there. So that got pulled back, and then Russia hits a pen, so then Denmark has work to do, and then they score again right as Belgium gets the opener. And it was just an awesome time to watch European soccer right there. Also, Højbjerg playing more forward was like a revelation to me. Kind of remind me of like the last couple of games when he was given the license to go more forward and seemed a little threatening, but you didn't know if that was just part of it him saying fuck it, I'm just going forward. But
yeah,
it seems like he belongs in kind of more of a pressing, push them up, type situation, which if that's the case in the midfield and you're going to do that, I mean, maybe Spurs should look at things like 4-3-3s or whatever. I mean, or 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. I don't know, where you're like really shooting the midfields up. So maybe that gives you something to think about as well, as far as like another tactic if you're the new manager who should be named by August 1st.
I'd be totally fine with Højbjerg as the club captain.
Manager?
No.
I
feel that he's a guy that the team really does. He cares. Like, number one, he's going to give it all. The fact that this is the second time in like 4 months I've seen him with a full head bandage, just still going balls out. That's fantastic. Here's one here from Dexter Simmons. How close are we to the point with no manager hired that fans will start protesting at the stadium or training grounds? Dexter is Enoch out, Levy out. At this point, Dexter, my perspective is apathy. No,
well, you're further away. Bitterness for me.
Trust me, apathy in the sense that this has gone on so long now. What the hell is the point of protesting? Just whatever happens. If it sucks, we'll protest. If it's really good, we'll be happy, and it was all meant to be. Do I foresee it being very good? Yeah, if it's Graham Potter. No, if it's one of the other 1,800 names.
Ten Hag, you won't hate it. You won't hate it.
I won't hate it. I won't. But no, I don't think we're at that point. I mean, maybe
at least Euros.
It's a different perspective. I'm not there. I'm not in N17. I'm not at the pub talking about Spurs with folks that have been paying for season tickets through their family for their entire lives. So I don't know what that buildup is like, but I can just speak for me personally. I don't know what the hell to expect out of them anymore. Don't really care. I'm just here to talk once a week about it until we get a manager, and then we'll probably have an episode every other day. Just this is the future. We're going to be brilliant, I swear. But the sooner they get it done, the better chances of not having that repercussion from the lack of movement. And I think that'll be a positive thing for the club to avoid. But could it reach a boiling over point if it's over a week after Euros? Oh, absolutely. This could get messy.
I mean, Surly Shakes. I'm already apparently a nuisance to my friends on texting back and forth. Would be funny if I didn't go to a match first in person, Bucks. I just went to a protest first, just flew to London for it. But I'm getting there.
I know, I can tell.
It's just so ridiculous. There's just no other way around it. And then I got to read other teams like signing players. Like, we don't have a manager yet.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, I think it's a different atmosphere over there in terms of I respect the hell
patient than me, maybe.
Well, I think that fans over in England have a hell of a lot more power than fans here in the States. So, power to them if they can force hands. But do I want to see protests outside the club I love? No. Yeah. Would I understand them? Absolutely. We got one here from Nathan Keller. What if this long managerial search is all a ploy so they can drag it out in the entire transfer window and make no transfers again? So flashback to 2 years ago.
The teams, the supporters are more, I mean, they're just more intelligent people for years now, but like everyone would see through this shit after they didn't sign anybody like a couple years ago, Bucks. They'd say, okay, so because of your own incompetence of not signing anybody as the manager, now that's going to be the excuse why I didn't bring in any player. So obviously no one would go for it whatsoever. Would I put past anything with this group? I guess not, but I'm just going to be cautiously optimistic on this one. Besides, they'd get called out. They'd be like, all right, so your incompetence led to more incompetence. Like, that's not an excuse.
Well, I also feel that when a manager comes in, he knows the players that he's working with that weren't his players prior to that, right? So what is to stop us if we have a director of football to say Tariq Lamptey is a guy we want to bring in to play right back?
Yeah.
The new manager can deal with that.
I said this last episode. My worry now will actually be transferring players out. Like, who doesn't the manager want in their plans after evaluating everything and probably watching some film, but really only going after a couple interviews and a couple practices? That then becomes harder. It's a little easier to say, like, all right, we identified this guy, and then it turns out the manager likes him too. Great. We've already been working the channels with the agent. They still weren't going to sign ever until they knew who the hell the manager was, but at least we worked something there. Whereas transferring someone out, I mean, I don't know. Like, it feels like you're going to try to rush to do that too. And everyone knows, all right, now you don't want, pick a name, Eric Dyer or something like that. You're going to get lowballed. Next thing you know, he's still on the squad, even though you wanted to move him out and get the transfer funds. So,
and that would be the most egregious error.
But don't you see that happening? That seems like pretty straightforward. Like, that's going to happen.
Yeah. I think we're going to sign 2 players. We could really use 5.
Like, honestly, Paratici, look, I hope, for love of God, like, he's going to bring so much to the table when it comes to scouting, networking, maybe the way he runs his office will be more dynamic, whatever. But I don't see him transferring out someone right now until there's a manager, right? So then you're going to get the manager in, you have to confer with that guy. Like, the first transfer out for Spurs, aside from like the guys that went for free, like Danny Rose to Watford or whatever, like, that won't happen until a couple of weeks after the manager. So probably end of July. Like, okay, now we're already looking at August. The league starts. So this time frame doesn't, time only leaves us. It does not come back. So I don't believe this is going to set us up for for a summer of success, Bucks. That's all I'm going to say. And just, you look at it every different angle, gets you more bitter.
All right, so this last one here from Alex Asher. This is specifically for you, Shakes. I will not answer this because I will not sit through what he's proposing. How much would you pay for an unedited, true behind-the-scenes documentary featuring the Tottenham board from the days leading up to firing Mourinho to whenever they actually hire a manager to see what Levy and the board truly have been doing the last 2+ months and how those talks have gone? How much would you pay?
See, at first I would have paid a ridiculous amount to see the Poch firing and how all that unfolded. If you would have told me like within 2 years you'd want to pay for something else more, I wouldn't have believed you, Bucks, but here we are. I really, truly don't know what has happened the last, 60 days? I think it's that amount. Is it 50 days?
64 days, I believe, is the
64
timeline today. Yeah.
I mean, there's probably maybe some golf, some socializing with friends. It's just buying a golf course.
Well, you already know what he's been doing because you've been stalking him the whole time.
Buying a golf course.
You just don't know the ins and outs of the conversation.
Setting up his prearranged fake, like, give me the questions first interviews and then edit it down to 8 minutes. That probably took a whole day. So that's one of the 64 days. Maybe like a birthday was in there in between. But like,
answer the question, Shakes. What would you pay?
A lot of money. A lot of crypto.
$500.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You could have added a zero to that.
I'd give him one nickel. Give him 5 cents.
You don't want to know? You wouldn't want me to watch it. I'd be angrier. I'd come back and be like, you wouldn't believe what they did day 34.
Well, no,
the whole list.
I would be a Levy apologist because you know me. I thought it was so candid during that 8-minute piece together interview. It'd be chopped and screwed to like Mike Jones to get me into a place where I was like, you know what, this Levy guy's really got ideas, Shakes, and then that would deteriorate our relationship so much. Like it would be entirely different. It would just be us screaming at each other. We stay pretty civil, but good Lord. Yeah.
I don't know if you'd be the best reporter, Bucks, or like if you're like moderating a debate, someone would make their point and you'd just be like, all right, well, that sounded like the best one to me.
Well, like if I just showed up and they had bagels with cream cheese, I'd be like, these guys got it going. This is perfect.
With lox?
I do like a lox, but I also am just a traditional I prefer traditional bagel with schmear, but I have to say, when it comes to bagels, like when I'm in New York City and I get like a legit everything bagel up in New York City, I just want butter on it.
I like butter over cream cheese too. I think
shitty bagels, I like the cream cheese.
See, no, I just don't like it. Maybe I don't mind cream cheese. It's just the amount, like the gobs of cream cheese that goes on some bagels is just ridiculous.
That's the problem.
That's unnecessary.
Cream cheese. I think that's why I originally pivoted to, I go to New York City for work. I've been up there for fun. Whatever, man. I go to London for work, for Christ's sake.
Flexer.
Look at them guns. But the first time I remember I ordered a New York City bagel with cream cheese, it was twice as much cream cheese as there was bagel. So the thing was like this big. It was all cream cheese. I felt a bit overwhelmed by the entire situation. So the next morning, I was there for work and wake up in the morning. I'm like, all right, let's get butter this time. And I'll tell you, it changed my entire perspective on a buttered bagel. It's fantastic. And you don't need to toast those fresh New Yorkies. The New Yorkies, you just get straight up. They're hot. They cut them. They butter them. It's fantastic.
It's like so much cream cheese. You like squish it down and it like just oozes out the side.
Which is disgusting, by the way. It's
so awful.
Because what do you do? Because you have 360 degrees of surface.
Yeah, there's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah. Except the hole through the top, and then that shoots right into your face. All of a sudden, you have an explanation to give to your managing director, and you're like, what the hell is going on? I got cream cheese in my face. But I will never toast it in New York, Jerry. Absolutely not. But when I am down here in the South, we can't get a good bagel to save our lives down here. We just can't do it. And I don't understand what it is, but it's something different up there. Yeah, apparently. They say the water. What the hell is that all about?
I don't know.
There's just something different. A New York bagel, just like a New York slice of pizza, it's going to be a lot better than whatever you get here anywhere else in the States, really. But yeah, I do enjoy New York bagels. And with that in mind, we will sign off. Thanks to our sponsors at Manscaped. Use our code KOIS20 at manscaped.com for 20% off on your order with free global shipping. KOIS20. Danny Shakes, I thought it was a fun episode considering everything is pure shit right now. So thank you for joining. And I'm glad that we aired it out for you tonight. I'm glad we aired everything out.
Thank you, Bucks. It's my road to recovery. I will do better. I will be a nicer person to you and Everton Jordan. So my apologies here.
You know how in Step Brothers, the dad says, find your dinosaur or don't lose your dinosaur. We need to find you your Linda.
Okay. We'll do a group session.
Yeah, that would overwhelm Linda.
We'll find a new Linda then.
Okay. We need to find your Linda, Shakes. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter at TTPodCoys and on YouTube, Talking Tottenham Pod. Thank you all so much for the love and support. We'll be back next week. Danny Shakes, sign the people off.
Let's go. Let's take our mind off things. Watch some Euros, catch up on some rom-coms, and come on, you Spurs.
Good one, Shakes. Coys. Get it done. Don't fuck this up, Levy. Just don't do it. Coys.